Hey guys, welcome back to the Brick House. Johnny Brick here, and I just want to talk about Groudon, Kyogre, and a couple other Pokemon in this video. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So a lot of videos have recently dropped about Kyogre, Groudon. They've recently been added to the mainland China server, and we have some videos just showcasing some of their moves. So I'm just gonna play it in the background right now. So this is just from Magikarp, by the way, over on Twitter, X, whatever, talking about Groudon a little bit. Kyogre pretty similar to Groudon. Just in the game, they like how when they're moving around. So they're gonna act like a lot like, you know, the Zapdos in the just originally that we have. So just taking down the goal zone, you're gonna have 10 seconds to score and everything. And you'll even see over here that, you know, when they're doing their attacks, it's going to be a lot like Zapdos. Like, it's essentially just going to be a reskin of the Zapdos attacks that we currently have. So you see the knock up there. You're going to have, you know, CC it so it doesn't actually get that attack off on your goal zone. Here we can go over to Kyogre now. They have that long blast that's gonna hit that big AoE effect all in front of them. So yeah, so essentially a reskin of Zapdos, and so yeah, so this is what they're gonna be doing in the game. Kind of a map change going on as well. So we have like an aquatic map over here. This one's more rugged. I believe it's gonna kind of like choose which of them spawn at the beginning of the game, right? So like each game, you know, you're gonna have a chance of having a Groudon be the mid spawn or a Kyogre be the mid spawn. And I believe the map's going to be different as well. I'm not sure if that's going to have any gameplay changes with it as well, which would honestly be pretty interesting. If that is a pretty good way to keep the game pretty fresh, actually. But you know, we'll see. So now the main question that we have is, when do we get this, right? So the China server, as we all know, the China server has a lot more features, to say the least. And you know, we were told that those features will come over to our version of Unite. It won't be some sort of 2-version thing that they're going to keep updating independently. The plan is indeed to, you know, bring the features over. And I believe by the terminology they use, it does imply all the features. We could still have like them say outright all the features are coming. We will have one version, but it was implied that, like, you know, all the main gameplay features are going to carry over. And so this is where I now just want to go over to the first to 500 mode. So Groudon, Kyogre only going to be available in those first to 500 modes, right? And if we're just going to go into a time machine, well, we can start talking about, well, when was the first to 500 mode released and everything. And so this was actually back last August. It was announced at the end of the World Championships that we will get this new mode, and it'll be introduced late spring. I believe it ended up coming out on like February 27th, right? So really late, really late winter, but you know, so we eventually got the mode. But mainland China got that into their ranked mode. And it's a little bit more fleshed out in their version. The reason why I bring this up is because right now the 2025 championships are going on, and we have a couple dates we can actually point to on when we can actually maybe expect something like this. Right now, as I'm recording, it's the 9th, and the regional championship finals are going to be over on Sunday the 11th. They're a bit wrapped up, right? There's not many patch notes. It's been a bit dry for the last week or two. We even had like a kind of a prolonged season last time, and I believe it's just, you know, just to prepare for this. And one thing about, you know, doing patch notes is you don't want to have a patch midway and then it just kind of screws up the whole meta. You want to have something that the fans who are watching the game, who also watch, you know, the championships, they do typically want to emulate what's going on into one of their solo queue games. So having a big disparity like that isn't that good for the viewer. As for the players, I believe they do play on like even a previous version, so none of this stuff usually matters with them. But as far as timing goes, you don't want to do anything too drastic until the championships are done. Being said, we do have the gap, and after May 11th to June 13th, where there's nothing really happening. So they're gonna have some time to focus on some patches of the game at that point. And this is where I put on my little conspiracy hat, I guess, and say I do actually expect like an update on the 14th, sometime next week, maybe even like right after. If they might even do an announcement right after the event, but I do expect them to have maybe like the little header that comes up at Alchemy is a week away, and they're gonna drop that on the 14th, and then a week later after that, Alchemy will be in the game. And it's a bit of a toss-up if Groudon and KYOGRE get added at that time too. I don't exactly expect that they will. However, I do want to keep that like kind of door open for a possibility in case something does come out. What I do find more likely is after the World Championships. I do kind of suspect that they will drop the new Groudon KYOGRE. And so one of the main reasons that they actually are even in this, like we have the split version, is because of the Nintendo Switch, to be honest. So moving on from here, the mainland China version isn't on the Nintendo Switch, and I think that's a bit of a confusion that some people over here have, since obviously we don't have the mode. But I do want to emphasize this really quickly that like it's only on Android, right? If you just look and like just on the wiki over here, on the Unite wiki over here, it just says like while the game itself is never released on mainland China, Nintendo Switch consoles, it was used for testing, but it's only been on proper distribution, like officially released on iOS, iPad, Android in China. And that is a big reason why that version is the only version that has all of these quality of life features. The Nintendo Switch can't handle it. This is now where we get into, well, we might have to wait even longer, sadly, than August of this year for Groudon KYOGRE to come over. And this is what I'm saying with the most, if I have to be, most optimistic to least optimistic, most would obviously be he's dropping next, give it 2 weeks, they're going to be dropping with Alchemy, we're going to have a great time, they're going to get thousands of players coming back to the game in droves, and it's going to be a great time for everyone. That's the optimistic part. The more, I feel, realistic or I guess cynical side is because the Nintendo Switch is such a weak console that can't actually run Pokemon Unite properly. Like, we can't have the hubs, we can't have, this attention to detail to all these Unite moves that, this other version gets, because it already chugs. I already have a lot of issues with, I'm just starting up my game and it froze, right? Or I gotta do a band pick and I can't even scroll to the correct Pokemon in time because my game is just so glitchy and slow that I just essentially don't get a ban, and it's a real problem. So adding even more load onto that, I don't see the Switch being able to do that unless they just ground up re-optimize it. That's when the whole discussion of, oh, but we have the Nintendo Switch 2 coming in. We have the Nintendo Switch 2 coming in. And we do, right? Obviously we do. Can't say we don't. But there's an issue with that. So I guess I'm say here. So the issue with the Nintendo Switch 2 is basically, this is a quote that was said back in 2011, and it's one of those things. So Masuda said this, Shinichi Masuda, who is fairly higher up in the Pokemon company. I believe he still does actually in fact work there. But he's like a pretty instrumental role to the company, and a lot of what he does still is still seen today. So anyways, the quote that I just want to cite really quickly is just from him when they were talking about releasing Black and White. One question that the Pokemon company got back then was, why did you guys release this on the DS and not the 3DS? And Masuda's response to that is the main idea behind the Pokemon series, what's most important for it, is that as many people play it as possible. It has to be on hardware that has lots of units, and people worldwide can play it together and with each other. And this is something that, and the reason why I bring this up is because this is something that actually hasn't changed at all with Pokemon. You can even like go back to the recent history, right? You got like Sun and Moon. When Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon came out, there's a whole rumor that it was going to be Stars, it's going to be on the Wii U. Really, the reality was that it's a very low chance that they ended up releasing Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon alongside on the 3DS, even though the Wii U is out, because the 3DS has more units sold. And we can see this now with Legends Arceus. There's a reason why it's going to be a Switch and Switch 2 game. And it also goes back to this quote, right, of it has more units. And more reach worldwide. And in the game where it's about interactivity and connecting, yeah, you're gonna release it on the console that has more. And if you just look over at the forecast, so this came out, by the way, on May 8th, so yesterday, as of recording this. They are forecasting 15 million units sold in the first fiscal year of the Switch 2. So that's this year in June until next year. I think some of you can probably already see where I'm going with this. The Nintendo Switch already has, I believe it's 150 million units sold. And and on this slide, right, like the Switch still has annual players, like almost 130 million annual players, which the Switch 2 is gonna need a little bit to get to that point. With this being a live service game, I don't see them making another version, essentially, you know. So what they're gonna have to do is make the Switch 2 version worse in comparison, so the Switch 1 version, you know, can still come up and you know, participate until a couple months, couple years go by, where, you know, the player base has successfully moved over to the next console, and then they can kind of sunset that version. To sum this all up, when are Groudon and KYOGRE gonna come? Fingers crossed they're gonna add them with our first to 500 mode in about 2 weeks. Less optimistically though, I think we may have to wait over a year before we see a lot of these changes. And we're gonna see, you know, slow implementation of these China server exclusives coming over to the global server in an almost reactionary sense. It's gonna be how many people have a Switch 2, how many people are gaming on a Switch, how many people are gaming on their Androids, with this specific game in particular, right? And all that's gonna drive on how fast they're gonna work and what they're gonna do. But, you know, if I do believe though, if there's a huge player base that sticks to the Switch version, and specifically like the Switch 1 version, and doesn't move on, it's going to delay a lot of the changes that can possibly be coming to Unite. So, bit of a somber note to end on. Do quickly want to talk about just some all-rounders right now. So usually when I'm just doing some research on just, you know, who's good, what's going on with the game right now, Unite API is, as many people know, one of the best sites for just finding statistics. And ever since the Speedster nerf, the last patch, I've noticed a trend with all the all-rounders, and it's that they are just winning games a lot more now. And I just want to touch on this because I do think it was just a bit funny, since it was seen that attackers were being held back by speedsters so hard. It was, oh, I can't play my attacker because of the speedster. Oh, I'm not performing that well as an attacker because of the speedster. It was the all-rounders that I think were really suffering here, right? Obviously, and like, not obvious, but all the all-rounders, like, they're not all the same. They're doing so good right now. And so yeah, you'll just see, like, best Pokemon of this week right now, all batting well above a 50%, is all rounders, right? Zacian, Gyarados, Phalanx, Urshifu, Serena. They're dominating the top 5, and then like we have like Urshifu with a 0.41% increase on his win rate. Tyranitar nearly a 4% increase, going like that's essentially going from a B tier pick, maybe even a C tier pick, to a high B, mid A tier in a week. It's a lot of basically to say it's a lot of percent. You only see kind of like a couple percentage points tick up and down, to see like a 4% increase on the win rate is kind of like, okay, what's going on here? I think it's gonna take a little bit more time before the player base kind of catches on to this. As we can all, a lot of us can see, the player base loves playing attackers, and that's, you know, the huge part why the attackers were crying about speedsters. So I'm just now waiting for people to start crying really about all-rounders. Maybe we can start the crying right now, right? I'm down to start complaining about them. I don't like playing all-rounders, so seeing them up right now, I don't know, it makes me feel a little bit of a way. I'm just joking. I'm sorry to all my all-rounders who are watching this game, who are watching this video. Anyways, that's all I just wanted to touch on though for today. You know, will we get GROUDON and KYOGRE? Maybe. Hopefully. I'm also waiting for El Creamy. Hopefully they drop some more information, like again, like after the finals that are set to happen, or the regional finals that are set to happen on the weekend. Maybe they'll give us a little announcement then. We've been just a little bit dry for the last like a week or so. But again, understandable because of NAIC, I believe it's called. And yeah, and you know, all-rounders. I totally think that they're in a really good spot, and you know, give it a week or two, and I think we're gonna see a lot more conversation around them specifically. So right now is a great time to get ahead on the curve, and hey, see anyone you like here? Maybe it's time to start playing them, right? I do recommend playing win rate Pokemon with high win rates. If you're trying to do a solo queue climb, it's Pokemon with high win rates. It's not that they tend to be easier Pokemon. It's just that they have something that's exploiting like a current meta. So right here, I believe what's going on is that there's a lot of people playing attackers because of the speedster nerf, and because there is no one that probably counters them anymore. These all-rounders are going to become now the top tier. And the real answer is, what do we do about attackers? How do we make attackers good? Maybe they needed the penetration, although I don't know if about getting armor shredded by a Greninja's water shenanigans. I'll leave that for you guys to debate in the comments. Anyways, hope you guys have a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I've been Johnny Brick, and I'll be back on Sunday with another Pokemon Unite tier list. Have a great day, guys.